What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Homestead from Scratch. And I am Greg Dowd. I'm here with Logan Hyde, and John may join us a little later. But what's up, Logan? How's your week, man?
Pretty good. I actually got to rest for 2 days, was it? Because it rained.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff I do is outside, so yeah, it was not well. I got to rest Saturday. Friday, I went and worked because most of it was inside. But yeah, no, that was nice. That tends to be the only way that I actually have a day that I literally just do nothing, almost. Still had to go out and don the rain gear and take care of animals and go in between breaks. So yeah, but no, good. Glad to get the rain. It almost uh got the soil back hydrated. Very close. It's still a little dry underneath, still a little powdery in places, but we got a pretty good soaking. How about you?
It was a crazy week, man. Pretty much nonstop. And where I work, they're needing people in the shop to help them out. So I ended up driving up to Nashville for a day, working up in there. And then we did this group buy on solar panels. And one of the folks that wanted some solar panels, um, I I'm also watching uh our friend's house right now and their dogs, and so I was driving from from here back to where the panels in the trailer were, driving that and taking them to them. And so I've been all around, and today I did an oil change on my Jeep before hopping on. So I've been I've been pretty busy, man.
It
So
sounds like it, which man, yeah, it'll wear you out when you got to be in between places. That's us right now. We're in between two properties, and it's just you go from one place to another, and it can get a little tiring. Yeah, I can't imagine you're between like three now for
three
just
play
the just
three
for right now.
places.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
yeah,
about
it'll,
three
it'll
places right now.
spread just slightly thin. That's for sure.
And doing a lot of driving, that's for sure.
Oh, something that was interesting today. I just got off the phone with Lee and Deanna, and they're the mushroom gals, and so I went and checked on our oyster logs after this rain, and I just weighed them. It wasn't a proper weigh, so there's probably a little bit more than what I weighed, but it's over 5 pounds. I thought it was 5 pounds, and it was a little over 5 pounds of oyster mushrooms. Got them right here. Really,
That's a lot of mushrooms.
yeah, really beautiful little whoop. Here we go. Really beautiful little clusters here. Got some big clusters too, but
Oh, wow.
yeah, they're fresh. This rain did it for them, and I've got just a huge tote bag full of them.
When did you inoculate those?
Those are the ones from the workshops in the spring. So you might want to check your logs and see
The most recent one that
the
happened?
most recent ones. Yep. Now
Okay.
the most recent ones, which everybody at the workshop would have got, sweet gum logs, and those tend to produce the fastest. They have a real
Mm.
high sugar content, and the mycelium tends to colonize those logs faster than the oaks. None of our oaks have flushed yet, except for one big oak log that Lee and Deanna put like, I don't know, 300 or 400 plugs in. We just filled it full, and it was one I had to pick up with the tractor. It was a log that we just stuck on the forks and did it, and I turned it and we do some more. So it had a ton of spawn put in it, and it was a shiitake log, and we got some mushrooms off of it about a week ago, or maybe two.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll have to let everybody know that got logs to check them out.
Yeah, it's this rain sometimes will do it for them.
Um, you can force a flush, right? Like if they're not producing, you can dunk them in some water, let them soak for like 24 hours or something like that.
Yep. And now these I did force a flush on.
You did. Okay, that's what
A
I was
few
wondering.
weeks ago, I soaked them, and well, probably about a month ago, I soaked them, and they produced a small flush. It was very small. It was maybe a pound, I'd say, maybe 2 pounds at the most. But I missed that flush because I didn't go out and check on them quick enough, or check on them frequently enough. But I knew right after this rain they were real hydrated, and that rain kind of triggered it. So it's something I think with mushrooms we think we know a lot of stuff about mushrooms, but it's kind of like outer space and the deep sea. We're still learning stuff, so uh, it kind of just depends. You can do everything right, and then the mushrooms may come 3 days afterwards, or they may come a week after. You just kind of never know. Luckily with these, I got them at just the perfect time. So I'm gonna eat some of them fresh. We're gonna freeze some of them to give to Lee, Indiana to freeze dry. By the way, they said hey, and
Hi.
they're gonna freeze dry them
It.
and preserve. What's that?
They should pop in sometime. They should come on the show sometime.
They should. I've talked to them about us doing me and them doing a live stream on my channel and everything. And yeah, they should. We should have them on soon to maybe talk some herb stuff, because that's definitely their forte.
Yeah,
But yeah,
man.
we're going to get them preserving some of them, and we're going to try to eat as many as we can fresh, because man, they're delicious. My fingers had this really sweet mushroom smell all the way over from the property. I was doing this, like I'd have one hand on the steering wheel, I'd be sniffing like I don't know, like some kind of drug. But it was very, very, very delicious, foresty, sweet smell.
Now, how many logs do you got? A bunch of logs, don't you?
Yeah, we've Lee actually has a log of our logs. And but she's got an Excel spreadsheet with all of them on there, but I know it's well over 300, I think, that we've got.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we've got a bunch. Some sweet midnight memories on inoculating all those logs.
Yeah.
One day, I started it. I think it was 3 a.m. and they had to drive up from Birmingham, of course, and had some stuff happen. And they got there about midday, and we worked till midnight, doing stuff. So I had already been cutting logs and had them up there. We did an extremely long day on one of them, just trying to get the stuff done. But it's definitely paying off. We've got mushrooms coming out of our ears right now, so
Awesome.
pays off.
So, yeah, man. I think we had a few things that we were going to talk about tonight. A couple of other questions on some things to consider when starting your homestead. I think there were a couple I had in mind that were in relation to emergency medicine and security and defense. So I don't know if we want to talk a little bit about that, or we could kind of talk about whatever topic, really.
No, that sounds good to me. I think those were that, and you had one about fire suppression. I remember we were kind of talking about that. One of the things, if we continue to do this little series, kind of focus on the homestead from scratch, I'm gonna try to get some feedback from my YouTube audience to see if there's anything that they'd like us to talk about as far as topics, of getting started. But yeah, those are great. Home defense, and it's not all about, because I know that you would consider yourself a prepper, and I would consider myself somewhat of a prepper. But homesteading's not about like the doomsday prepper stuff of like get your bunker full of rice, beans, and bullets and band-aids, and save up stuff and get all, have an excuse to buy as many firearms as you want, and all that stuff. But there's some very practical things when it comes to homesteading that just makes your and I mean, defense can be a lot of, defense from what? There's a lot that we could go into on that of, what are you defending against? Are you defending against looters, like in the every prepper fantasy deal? Are you defending from government oppression? Are you defending from kids just messing with your stuff?
We have a John.
Hey, John.
My apologies for being just a little bit late, but
how dare you, sir? How dare you?
It's a busy day, and hey, it just started raining again. I was like surprised there. But, anyway.
We were just talking about your replacement, since you can't be here.
There you go.
Well, if you can't get here on time, just get here when you can.
Yeah.
And this was not intentional, but we're in a subject matter area where I'm a little bit light on, so I'll try to contribute to what I can.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you can keep elaborating there, Logan.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, if you want to, since I took over last week, if you want to ask the questions, and we can kind of just go around and do the round table top style.
Yeah,
and then
no
we'll get started now that we got John here.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I've run into recently has been, oh my gosh, the neighbor set a fire next to my property in a completely dry time of year where it has not rained in a long time. And the only thing I have on the property right now are rain catchment and some water for rain catchment, and like one fire extinguisher. But that led me to thinking, like, what considerations should you have for being able to handle fires on your homestead and things that might occur in that nature. I'll be setting up access to city water over there and working on that. But any other kind of considerations that you guys think you just gotta Logan, what do you think? Let's start with you.
So I guess I'll come first from the obvious answer is have access to water to put out fires. I think that's the pretty obvious one, of having some water storage, or having a way that you can pump out of a pond in high volumes, or just having water hookup. There's a lot of things that you can do with that, but some of the things I think we don't think about is techniques that they use out west, where they have a lot of wildfires, and that's a prevalent issue. Out here, it's not as big of a thing. We're more tornadoes than we are wildfires. So if you have a neighbor that decides it's a good idea to start a fire in a 2-month long drought, then you want to have something that's going to help mitigate any damages you might have. And so for me, coming from like the permaculture side of it, I would say stuff like fire breaks is a very common thing, having your ditches and places where you're not going to have a whole lot of tinder for that fire to feed on. Another thing is just, if you can, green things don't burn very well. Now, you can kill green things with the heat and the fire around the edges, but if you have a really green and lush area, then it is very hard for that area to catch fire. One of the things that I've just noticed, I think that Greg, you and I were talking about this before we came on last week. I was showing you my zucchini plants, that the ones that had the more biochar and the ones that had less. And there was an extreme notable difference in between those two. So just having your soil to where it's more hydrated. So techniques like Kugel culture, biochar, putting in micro ponds, using some kind of irrigation to keep your landscapes hydrated, and then incorporating fire breaks is a really good way to think about that. Because the thing is just like with your property, even if you would have had a way to suppress that fire, you're not out there. And so you wouldn't have been able to, you can't teleport and grab the hose and start putting out fires. So putting, in systems that are going to mitigate the risk of fire to begin with. And that's one thing that we've really got to focus on as we're developing the property, is putting in enough ponds and keeping the landscape hydrated enough so that if we do have some kind of fire, the damage is either going to be minimal or non-existent. So that's just my perspective on it, is trying to create a landscape that's going to be resistant to fire, cutting out underneath your trees, not leaving a whole lot of scrub and stuff for kindling. You can do stuff like put it into hugel cultures, put it into dead hedges. I know we talked about dead hedges last time I was over at your property. And now they're a little bit of a fire hazard themselves because they are a brush pile. But if you locate them strategically in the property, it could be a great way to get rid of all that stuff, create some more habitat, and be a little more resistant to fires and stuff like that. But that's my point of view on it, is just from a permaculture lens of, hey, let's make sure that the landscape is more resistant to fire, rather than see how many gallons of water we can store to put one out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't even consider that. That's a good all valid points there. John, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
have you ever come across that?
He kind of stole a little bit of my thunder there, because that's exactly what I would do. And as opposed to having a actual fire break, which actual fire break is you just basically scrape off all the vegetation in a certain area, so when the fire gets to that point, it runs out of fuel and it can't. Of course, it can always jump the fire break and get back on more combustible landscape. But again, with your idea, Logan, of keeping, I realize in permaculture, a lawn is not necessarily something people really, that's just wasted space. I could be like growing food there and stuff, man. And it's kind of like a suburban thing. And it's like, no, a big open space of grass is a great natural fire break. Great natural, as long as it's being minimally watered and it still stays green. Obviously, when it turns into just stubble and it's dead, and it'll catch fire like anything else. So just maintain, and like you said, Logan, use some permaculture principles of keeping that soil around your house hydrated, so the vegetation can continue to be green, and it's not a tinderbox ready to blow up on you, because that, let's face it, that's what happens in California. It's an extremely dry, extremely brittle landscape that, we think of droughts here, and, I just looked at my app on my phone. I've gotten 40 inches of rain so far this year. In some parts out west, that's like 3 or 4 years of rain, and they would have mudslides with 40 inches a year. So it really is a context-based thing. Out west, you've got much more cognizant of what's going on around you, as opposed to here living in, which is, close to tropical rainforest, and sometimes of the year over in the Appalachians and in the hills there, it's they get good 70 inches of rain a year in some of those parts, and it's like that's not going to be a problem there. It literally never dries out to where there would be a forest fire, and you don't really hear that, and I'm speaking specifically our part of the country, so other places are different, but you don't hear of forest fires in the Smoky Mountains and that whole Appalachian chain, because it gets enough rain. There's enough rain there where it's really not an issue. That's the great thing. I had a friend of mine who grew up in Arizona, and he loved backpacking and hiking, and he'd hike all the mountains and out there in Arizona and New Mexico and Colorado. Extremely dry. He moved to Tennessee, and he's like, you mean when I go hiking, I don't even have to think about water, where I'm going to collect water from, because it's like there's streams and lakes and there's water everywhere. Not everywhere, but it's much more abundant here than it is out west, to where he'd go backpacking, and like the whole backpacking trip was to plan out where he could get water, and where available water sources, and you have alternate routes. You get to a certain point, it's like, oh, that water hole doesn't have any water that I was counting on. I have to have plan B and go another route back the other way with more dependable. He came to Tennessee, he's like, I don't even think about water, compared to what he used to. So it is context dependent, but the neighbor problem, that's a whole nother set of issues, and that's a whole nother show about what do you do about crappy neighbors, or they might not be crappy, but they might be somebody that just moved out to the country, and they don't know not to burn their garbage in the driest part of the year, and without any proper stuff going on, right?
Well,
Yeah.
So like I said, that's a whole nother show about neighbors and how to integrate into your actual landscape and where you're actually going to live. But somebody that's going to start a fire, that's always that's never going to end up well, but protect yourself first. You can't outlaw stupidity.
Yeah, that's something that you don't get to, I guess, thinking about it, spending more time before you buy your property and getting to know a few of your neighbors is a really good idea. But you never know, when somebody leaves that property, they sell it off to somebody else, or somebody comes in to rent it or something like that.
Well, and I mean, I don't know your experience, Greg, or your experience, Logan, but when you see a property around you go up for sale, the first thing you think is like, who's going to move in there? What kind of neighbors am I going to get? And that's the first thing you think about. It's like, oh, I hope they, don't have this or that, or I hope they're, because some people just didn't grow up in rural areas, and it's just like they just don't know, and you can't hold it against them, but you do need to talk to them. I know we're getting off topic here a little bit, but do what you can do and protect yourself first.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky with our neighbors, and I'll try to save, like, I'm not going to elaborate on that too much, because I've got on the list for future episodes, I've got crappy neighbors and of course mulberry. So we've got an episode coming up before long about mulberry trees, nothing but mulberry trees, and then nothing but crappy neighbors. So
I got you.
But yeah, we were, because of the wonderful deal that we got on our property, we were not very diligent on investigating our neighbors, and luckily we're blessed with like 90% just awesome neighbors, and we really lucked out on that one. But yeah, that's which that kind of ties into defense too. I mean, who are the people around you? Have they got your back? Will they watch your property, et cetera, et cetera? But yeah, you can't. It kind of goes back to just us not being able to control what happens if we're not there. Now, if Greg were living on that property, then it would have been a lot different on mitigating the fire, but or we'll putting the fire out. But yeah, the mitigation, especially if it's in an area that you don't go to often, I think that's the golden ticket on doing that. But
I like it. I'm gonna have to look at what I can do over there to prevent that from happening in the future. So, I did want to bring up the idea of defense, and I do think it is maybe a topic that is lacking somewhat when we talk about homesteading and people getting out onto some land, and living this lifestyle, because I mean we do live in reality. There are people that will be violent and attempt to do violence against other people. So defense and security, I think, are important aspects of living this lifestyle as well. I think I don't know who said it, but there's a quote of, be a warrior in a garden, not a gardener in a war. But with everything that's going on in the world right now, I think it's important to think about those things. And, um, you know, uh, I've read about different situations in different countries and what people have done. And then, watch some shows about that kind of stuff where guys that are criminals go around and they see if they can break into a place or something, and see how well your security considerations are. So I know one thing is like having an animal, and just having a dog that barks is a big deterrent for would be people that would want to come onto your property. Um, and personally, I do firearms training just to make sure that I am up to speed on that kind of stuff. But what do you guys do? What are some things that do you have like a security system? Are you thinking about this at all? Like what are your guys' thoughts? John, you said you might have
Yeah, yeah. Let me go ahead and I'll start off on this one.
All right.
I have dogs. I think, one of the things people don't think about, or maybe think about, maybe they have a pit bull that's a house dog, and it's like, if somebody tries to get in the house, they're going to be in trouble. And that's true. But for me, what I think is more important, and I have 4 dogs. 2 of them are big that would be, formidable, but they're not trained attack dogs. They're just larger dogs. And then I have 2 small ones. But I think, at least the way criminals think, unless they're just high on drugs and it's an opportunity situation, they're going to drive around and see what's on your property. And if you've got dogs running around during the daytime, they're going to know that there's dogs on your property and in your house. If your dog's in the house and they don't know it's there, they'll find out, but they'll already be in a zone you don't want them to be in. And that's at your front door or wherever that might be. So being visible on your property, if you're there, if it's a remote location, you don't live there, obviously you can't do that. But if you have a dog, hopefully and our dogs are inside dogs, but they spend almost all the time outside because They get on my nerves, but having them visible for people to see, I mean, because I know the FedEx and the UPS driver know we have dogs because they're barking at them and running up and down the road, and they show up. So the same thing for a criminal. They're going to know, and smart criminals have a way to get around that, but most criminals aren't that smart. And,
well, your smart criminals too are going to take a risk assessment. Like you're saying, they're going to be like, well, we could go to John's house that has the 4 dogs, or we could go to his neighbor's house that has no dogs.
Sure. That's just like going up to a car. It's like, well, that's got an alarm on it. Well, that's one's got keys in the ignition. I guess which one I'm going to take, because I'm, it's just it's a crime of opportunity a lot of times. And if they're do any of their due diligence, I think the second thing, and this is something that I need to do, is, because I think of, my fear is I'm awakened in the middle of the night by a noise, that's unfamiliar. And maybe my dogs may be barking or whatever, but there's somebody at my front door. Now, it could be a person who just needs help, or it's somebody that showed up unexpected, which you don't do on a rural property because that's not really smart. And I'm thinking it's like, well, what most people that live in a suburban setting or in apartments, more often than not, they have a little peephole. They can look out the peephole and see who's out there. Well, that's not good, because you're right in front of a door that somebody could shoot through, and they could shoot you in the face if they know you're looking out there. So what I really would like to do is get some cameras on the external part of my house, so I can be in my office, in my bedroom, on my laptop, and I can see who's at my front door. I don't have to walk up there and look through the peephole and go, oh, there's a bad guy out there. You don't want to be that close to an intruder if you can help it. You want to know and be prepared before they come through that door. So I don't know so much about alarms, but I think just cameras and motion detecting cameras and lights help. I have those around my house, and of course there's animals around here all the time, so the lights are going on and off all the time. But I find that being actually a little comforting, to know that. And again, somebody that's going to be casing your joints going to know if you have motion activated sensors on your house. They're going to be checking that stuff out. So, it's I do, and I'm talking about this, and I'm talking about kind of non-lethal ways to protect yourself, because I think we would all agree that's always going to be your best opportunity. Anytime you enter the realm of, I have to use a gun, the danger ramps up just, dramatically. I'm not saying guns are bad. They're necessary. But if it's kind of like, I don't know if you know who Jocko Willink is. He's a former Navy SEAL. He does a lot of motivational speakers, and he'll say, it's like, if some big guy comes and wants to mess with me, the first thing I'm going to do is run. The last thing you want to do is stand and fight. But if you have to, be prepared. So I think home security is kind of the same way, is like, do all the things to deter somebody before they even come on your property. Don't just rely on that, double barrel shotgun, leaned up against the front door when somebody tries to come in. It's good to have it, but if you don't have to go there, don't. It's best to reduce that before it even gets to that point.
I was gonna say something about Joe Biden. Hey, you don't need no AR-15. You just need a shotgun.
A scattergun.
And this will be one of the very few times that I agree with Joe Biden, or really any politician for that matter. As far as the home defense, I think that the shotgun is one of the best as far as home defense, just because, I have two very young, a little toddler and a 5-year-old daughter. And I don't want them to be in a room and me trying to shoot it. Because if somebody comes into my house in the middle of the night, they may be just trying to steal some stuff. But, unfortunately for them, I cannot risk the danger to my family. And so having a round that's going to, just pepper them up real nicely, to quote, I can't think of the comedian's name, but he talks about peppering up guys real nicely. And he, you're not worried about, is that bullet going to go through the wall into another room and harm a family member? And it's also at a certain distance, birdshot, won't kill a man. And so I'm all about trying to avoid taking another human's life. If I can help it, I'd rather not do that. If it's absolutely necessary, it's necessary. But I think I liked a lot of the points that John made about the dogs. Having something that's going to be around your property that's watching 24/7. Our dog Skoda, she is watching all the time. And not all intruders are human. You've got a lot of animals that'll come up and try to eat your livestock. So, like with our ducks and chickens now, they don't even sleep in the coop anymore. They just lay out on the ground and up in trees now because Skoda's around, and there's literally no predators. And so they just do whatever they want. And I don't lose a, bit of sleep over wondering, hey, is a raccoon going to go out there and, kill all of them or this or the other, because she's always out there. So having, somebody that can be watching your property like that, like a dog can, dogs are extremely useful in that aspect. And, having people to where they can see that you got dogs. But I wanted to go a little counter on that about, having stuff visible. There's a lot of stuff you don't want visible. Keeping shop doors closed, making things to where you can't see them from the road type of deal, kind of being, hidden back in an area. Because those criminals, they go around a lot of times, like John said, they scope places out. And so if you've got all your, goodies to where you can't see them, a lot of times your criminal's going to be like, it's just like, they talk about hackers. Everybody thinks that, oh no, I'm going to get hacked and my, data's going to be leaked or whatever. It's like, well, they don't target you specifically because it's not worth it to them. They're going to attack somewhere like Facebook or Instagram, some kind of social media, a bank. They're going to try something like that because the payout's bigger. So if you can make it look like you don't have a big payout, then that's a huge defense in and of itself. But yeah, for us, another point to John's point about the cameras and everything, and preferably not having to fight someone or shoot someone is the ideal situation. If you can have cameras, another thing is if you can have a good flashlight, one that it hurts to look at it, because I'd much rather temporarily blind someone, even if they are just looking for help, than put a bullet in them. And if you can answer your door and you've got people out there and you can shine that flashlight in their eyes, see who they are, see what they've got in their hands, and kind of know, hey, are these people lost? Are they trying to cause trouble? Are they looking for something? Kind of you have more time to assess the situation, and then you can turn the flashlight off. You can't, immediately pull the bullet out of somebody if you just come out blazing. So having a really good flashlight, I think, is another thing people need to think about. A good spotlight. Another little aside here: if you are in a rural area, this is for anybody that's lost, looking for help, and you do come up on like a rural property where somebody's out in the country, you got a house all by itself. The best thing you can do is, if you've got a flashlight, shine the flashlight on yourself. So that way, whoever is coming out there, they're going to know that you're not a threat. You don't want to be shining the light up on their house or on them. You want to be very loud when you come up on their property, and you want to have that flashlight shining on yourself. So that way, somebody that's, in that farmhouse or whatever, not going to think that you're some animal getting after their livestock, or they're not going to think that you're, a thief. They'll see you and they can hear you. And that, evades a whole world of problems. Just, a little bit of etiquette there on when you're coming onto somebody else's property, because stuff happens. I mean, people, break down in the country. need help. Nowadays, it's kind of odd for that to happen just because we have cell phones, and most people can just sit by their car and wait. But if somebody did need help, that'd be a good thing to keep in mind. You know, make yourself visible, make yourself loud, state your intentions. Hey, I broke down, or hey, I'm lost, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I couldn't agree with John more. Cameras is one of the best things. Cameras, good flashlight, a shotgun, you know, any I guess Biden approved home defense that you can get. But you know, I'm not saying that like all the other rounds I think are great. And I say get all the guns you want, get all the ammunition you want, but just remember that each one has its place. And in home defense, like I stated before, I don't want to put any risk to my family, and I don't want to have to kill anybody if I don't have to. Because I mean, and sometimes people just fall on hard times. I really don't think you should be going into anybody's house no matter what, but I want to avoid that if I can.
I read a book from the economic collapse in Argentina. I think it happened in 2001, maybe. But that was what he talked about in there was the times that were the most difficult and decisions you would have to make is if somebody's coming onto your property, what if that's just a teenage kid that's just needing some food or something like that, you know? Same situation like you're talking about. And what you guys talked about is great, like having dogs, having security cameras so you can assess the situation better. And I think the big thing would be just to be aware of your surroundings when you're coming to and leaving your property, and making sure that you have situational awareness. That's one thing that I've got caught in my own life is being held at gunpoint a couple times and not being aware of my surroundings and what and thinking it couldn't happen to me. And I think probably a lot of people in our country, they have this kind of mentality, like things have been pretty good for a long time. But if things get bad and you're going out into the world with that mentality, like la-di-da, I've got my headphones in, I'm listening to something on my phone, I'm distracted, I'm not aware that you might get caught with something. So just like having an awareness and being a hard target, I think are very important for considerations for defense around.
Yeah, if I could, I'd like to add one more thing. I was kind of sitting here thinking because I'm thinking of my own situation, and this probably has more to do with location selection when you're looking for a property and things to consider. I'm on a dead end road, right? And there's pluses and minuses. Number one, you don't have a lot of traffic coming through there, and it's a long dead end road. So if you're coming back to where I am and I don't recognize your vehicle, I'm gonna like, who the hell's that? You know? And a lot of times, at least in suburban areas, that's the last place that people who break into houses want to get caught is on a one way in, one way out road, because you can get caught real easy that way. You know, the cops are coming and they're coming right for you, and there's nowhere to go. You're going on the same road. You know, so that's kind of a deterrent. You've got less just casual traffic going by your house on a dead end road. But you know, there's also, you know, downsides. Is you're on a dead end road, you know, and there's not much around you, you know, and you're a little, maybe a little bit more vulnerable. So just in that idea about picking out a property, and keep the security thing in mind, you know. and check out all the properties around there and access. What's the traffic situation like going up and down the road? Is it busy? Is it not busy? You have to make your own decisions at that point, what you favor and what's most secure for your family. But that's a real important thing is that kind of access to your property through the main roads. Are you on a road that just, you got constant traffic up and down all the time? People see your property 100,000 times a day, or does maybe 5 people see your property in a day, and 4 of those people are your neighbor and the other one's the mailman? So those are all considerations, I think, when selecting a property. I know that's a whole different show, but when it comes to security, I think that certainly is an important thing that in your mind, it might not be your, on your list of why I'm buying this property. It might be around 8 or 9 down there, but it should figure out in some way about why the pluses and minuses about the property. Is it securable?
Excellent. So I think this kind of leads into the next question that I was thinking about. So what considerations would you have if there was an emergency medical situation on your homestead? If accidents happen, cutting with your chainsaws, or you're out working and you stab yourself with your shovel or something, and or whatever you're working on, you might handling animals, things like that. Things happen, accidents happen. So
yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in so I don't steal Logan's stuff. He can steal my stuff, but and this is something I have to do, because I do that when I'm on my property and I go out to check out the cows. A cow could step on me. I could get bit by a rattlesnake. Who knows? I could have a freaking heart attack. Who knows? I'm old. But and it sounds really, really basic. Make sure you have your phone with you so you can call for help if you break a leg and you're in a remote part of your property and you can't get out. And then people go, well, I always have my phone. You know what? When you're getting ready to go out and work in the field, you don't want a lot of extra crap in your pockets, and sometimes I'll take my wallet and my phone, and I'm going to be in briars or something, and I don't want any extra stuff hanging off of me or whatever. So just remember, a cell phone is pretty darn important, because if like I said, if you have a broken leg and you can't get to where you need to be, you're going to be there until somebody finds you. And it'd be nice if you had your cell phone, and and if your loved ones, every family's different about their cell phone policies with children and adults, but and I I have a tracking app. Everybody in my circle knows where I am 24/7. I have nothing to hide from my family, maybe the government, but not from my family. I don't want the government tracking me, but they're doing that too. But if they're wondering, where's John? We haven't seen him for 6 hours. Well, there's an app, and it's like, oh, he's out in the field somewhere. Maybe somebody ought to go check him out, and that's really more of a safety thing. And when it comes to if something actually happens, how well am I able to take care of myself or a loved one? Pretty minimal. It's an area I need to work on. But the great thing where I live, it's about it's less than a mile from the hospital where I live. So if there's ever any emergency, I'm like right there if I need to go, or they can get to me fairly quickly as long as I'm not out in the field. So I'm fairly close to emergency healthcare. I mean, emergency medical, I should say, not healthcare. I don't rely on, I do rely on that to some extent. Maybe it's procrastination, but I think I've had basic first aid and emergency medical training. So you just need to know some real basics, do you know how and where to place a tourniquet if you have a big open bleeding wound? I mean, how immobilized are you going to be with a broken leg? Is there a way you can, self splint that, or do you have a walking stick? You have to use your imagination, and that's really hard to do in emergency situations, is kind of and that's when we're least likely to make the right decisions, is an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Because there have been people, and it's happened to me. It's like something happens, it's an emergency, and we get through it. And then it's like, well, I had that sitting right over there. I could have used that, but I wasn't thinking clearly.
Mm-hmm.
That's really, I would actually say, without, advanced medical care, is how to handle emergency situations and high stress situations like that, and making good decisions. And there's training you can do for that. You never know until the situation happens, but it's like, can you get into when you're in a stressful situation, can you calm yourself down? And I mean, we've all been in them, whether it's, road rage and traffic or something. Learn how to calm your mind and make good decisions in an emergency situation, and if people are like, well, that's not help. Believe me, if you make the wrong decision in an emergency, it's everything,
Mm-hmm.
And if I was just thinking clearly, I would have known. I could have gone over to my garage and got X, Y, and Z and fixed this problem, and then we would have avoided this disaster. So being emergency prepared mentally, I think, is like super important, and I think that's worth following up on it, and trying to get a hold of those type of skills.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Logan, what do you think about that?
So I'm going to have well, it's on top of what John said about communication. I wouldn't say it's a different opinion, because yes, carry your cell phone with you. That's extremely important to be able to get a hold of 911. One thing that we're going to do once we get onto the real Homestead is I'm going to get us all walkie-talkies, just because that can sit inside the house. And my family, my wife, my sister, brother-in-law, brother, parents, they're all horrible about answering their phones. I can be at times too. So, it's not just this is kind of the pot calling the kettle black. But for me, a lot of times, like if my wife calls me, I'm like, well, call me a few times. That way I know it's something really important. If I'm right in the middle of a job or something, call me twice. That way I'll, know to break away and pick up. But sometimes your phone could still be on silent. And so with the walkie-talkies, and it'll be just a convenience thing too, of like, hey, if I need to talk about something and I'm on the other side of the property, just be able to jump on there real quick, or, hey, come to the house for so-and-so. It'll be a convenience thing, but it also work for medical emergencies, just because if you're, laying on the ground and you can just push a button and talk to somebody, that could be very helpful too, along with having your cell phone. Because if you can't get a hold of anybody, then you can at least get a hold of 911, give them your location, have somebody come out there. I mean, I think a lot of it just has to do with being prepared too, having a plan for how you're going to get to the hospital, what emergencies would be, I guess, sufficiently severe to call an ambulance, or whether it would be quicker just to drive, et cetera, et cetera. One thing I was thinking of is we really need to get Lee on here. She's a nurse, and she goes around and takes care of people's wounds every day, and so she would be an excellent person to have on here and talk more in depth about this, rather than just all of our halfway knowledge on it because I know a lot of us could probably do better on preparing for that. First aid kits, having
Absolutely.
first aid kits everywhere. And I think it would be a great idea to have. I'll try to convince Lee to come on here and talk about, a little bit of emergency preparedness. A few things that you need to know, like, tie a tourniquet and stuff like that, just to keep you from dying and get the proper medical help that you need. But yeah, for us, it's going to be getting a bunch of first aid kits prepared, and not just the ones that you buy at Walmart, because I've had multiple people in the medical field talk about how it's like, don't buy the ones that are already prepared because they never have exactly what you need. Knowing what it is that you really do need and preparing those first aid kits yourself is going to be the key to that, and the communication thing, having your phone, a walkie-talkie, as many forms of communication. And like John said, letting people know where you're at. If you're going to be out cutting trees on the back 40, let everybody know, hey, I'm going to be out here cutting trees. Somebody should probably check on me, every so often, make sure that I haven't cut myself or a tree hasn't fallen on me, or, whatever it may be. I think that's extremely important. It's just the communication and, being prepared. And that's all I'm going to say about it, because I have a whole lot of work to do in that area.
Yeah. Well, let me, I think that walkie-talkie thing, when I first heard you say that, I'm like, okay, that's kind of old school, but here's what I like about that, because this happened to me, and it wasn't on my homestead. I was in a car accident. It wasn't even an accident. Some guy hit me at an intersection, and he drove off. It was hit and run. And my car was still drivable, so I followed him. I followed him through Pulaski until he got to his house, and I pulled over, and I was so jacked up on adrenaline. Much less dial 911. I couldn't get my security code in my touchscreen phone. My hands were shaking that bad. It took me 2 or 3 minutes to call the police, because I was just shaking, man. I couldn't even unlock my phone. I was that jacked up on adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens in emergency situations. So having a one key, walkie-talkie, that's all you got to do. You don't have to dial, connect. Just, hey, I just had an accident. Somebody come get me, So, and it's a little bit of diversion here, but it's funny how cell phones are so convenient to the point where now you need a separate communication device because you've been so enculturated to not answer your phone.
Yep.
Or you know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that weird? I almost said, we'll get a beeper or something, right? There's another old school technology thing. Because what it is like, when that thing goes off, it's important.
Yeah.
When your phone's going off for 500 different reasons during the day. Oh, it's a text, it's a phone call, it's a notification from Facebook, it's a Twitter tweet, it's your phone's making noises and vibrating all day long, and you numb out to that. So having that one button or that special device that says this is an emergency, that's really a great idea. Really a great idea.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know this is probably it's a weak area for myself. I think it might be a weak area for a lot of people, maybe something that they're lacking consideration on, but I think is very important, because these accidents do happen, and unforeseen things can happen at any moment, and if you're not prepared for it, then you're going to put yourself in a bad situation. So something to consider, getting some training. Like Logan said, I think having a good first aid kit, reliable one with all the stuff that you're going to need in it, and searching out people that provide those. I know there's a Refuge Medical, Bear Independent on YouTube. He runs that company, and they set up like really good first aid kits for people. If you want to get one and you want to have like a reliable one that's not one that you'd buy at Walmart that's going to be good for your family and everything, that's a place that you could look. And then we had an Eagle Scout that came and started his own medical business in and around Huntsville. He came to one of our meetings, and he started a first aid business selling kits, because he found that a lot, just like you were talking about, Logan, that a lot of the medical kits you can go out and buy are just substandard quality. So he started a company, Scouts Medical, and makes up kits too. So yeah, check those things out. You guys want to wrap up? We got an hour here. Go ahead and go around and let people know where they can find you and what you got going on.
Yes, well, you can
John.
find me here every Sunday night when I show up on time. And if you don't already know, I sell grass-fed beef. I got I'm sold out for this fall. I've got, I think, 2 to 3 steers that'll be finishing up in June, and I'll probably have 6 more next fall. So if you're interested in grass-fed beef, buying halves or wholes, I've been really pleased with the comments I get from my customers. They enjoy it, which is a relief to me. Because you want to sell the best product you can, and it keeps me motivated. And but that's what I do, and I'll be able to hook you up if that's what you're looking for. It's good grass-fed, healthy beef, the way it should be.
Yes, it is.
Amen.
Excellent. It is excellent stuff. All right, Logan.
Logan Hyde with Hideaway Homestead. You can find me on YouTube. Got a lot of videos over there. You can see all kinds of stuff, ranging from biochar to fodder trees to raising small livestock, even some fishing and stuff like that. So you can check me out on YouTube. And you can also email me at hideawayhomestead@gmail.com. Going to get in contact with me that way. Pretty easy to find. So, come over and check out the channel if you're not already a subscriber.
All right. And guys, this is the Tinker Tribe channel that I run. I also do a fitness channel called Take the Ride, and I'm documenting me basically starting from being a 280-pound big old fat boy, and still a big old fat boy, but I'm about 40 pounds lighter. So you can join on the journey if that's something that you want to get motivated to get your own exercise thing going on. And then I do live streams, and I do my own podcast here on this channel on the Tinker Tribe. And you can come check me out sometime. And if you like the content, subscribe. And I guess that'll be it, guys. Thanks again. And we'll continue this conversation next Sunday.
Awesome, guys. Thanks.
All
Stay
right.
easy.